intentionally more thoughtful about being calm at work, because that's something that I think I needed for like to be successful at work. Like my type of personality, I gotta walk in, maybe tone it down a little bit. And then also, just because especially in tech, there's so many ups and downs that my otherwise excitable personality, like that needs to be tempered. Like I can't ride the highs so much, and I can't like ride the lows so much. Like I just need to like, but that's all. A lot of that's just because like fundamentally who I am, like very curious, very excitable about like ideation, like learning something new. Like my brand and reputation, like I put on everything that I do, so I can like a lot of. But the point is that like different leadership styles can like immediately have an impact, like just on how that plays out internally within me.
How so? Like when you say that, like you said, different leadership styles may impact how you operate, essentially.
Like,
so,
yeah.
What are those leadership styles, or what are some of those things out of someone's leadership style that enables you to operate or perform well?
Yeah.
What are some of those things that kind of sway you to perform, negatively?
Well, so like,
poorly.
So like, for example, and like we'll just say, remember became like our team lead, and that was his first time in leadership position, and like his whole thing was like, I'm gonna do this. Like I'm gonna do this, and like I'm gonna be like a vocal energy, like, and so he kind of put that energy on me, and like I don't need that because like
I got enough.
Wait, if I'm gonna vibe with that, if I'm gonna like embrace like you, like that intensity from you, and then like that's my launching off point, like there's no stability there for me. Like I can't. It's just not gonna work. So that, and that's just like personalities. Like so that it made me think about how like somebody could be the wrong leader for someone just based off of their personality. Like, just an idea. Like I don't know how necessarily true it is, but like I think what makes like a leader great is like, they're not just, and I wouldn't have this expectation out of anyone who's like a leader for the first time, but like that might have been like his one go-to approach, right? And just more in line with his way of being. But I think like good leaders, all of a sudden now they have more tools in their toolkit to deal with different personalities because like, although he may be super excited about it, engaging with me in that particular way or that type of enthusiasm, like I just it wasn't gonna work. It just wasn't gonna work. It wasn't gonna work.
I don't mean to laugh.
And like, but now I got a leader at who's like very, very zen, very calm, and that's something that I can ride into, and then it can also it also just puts me in a better direction of like what I want to actually be at work. I want to be more level-headed. I don't want to necessarily have the ups and downs determine the mental space that I need to be in to consistently engage with problems, creativity, right? Like in a creative space, Because I think if you want to have that creative space, you got to really kind of be. You can't be freaking out.
Yeah. Like I know it's been a lot of conversation around flow, and in order to find that flow, you gotta be in the right environment.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, like your mind gotta be there, and it takes some time in that mind even before that flow kind of begins.
It's something I've been thinking a lot about because I'm happy right now. I'm happy, and I'm trying to.
In the workplace, and you can say that with a straight face.
I am stressed. But I don't feel like I have everyone that I could point to I could say like they're an ally. Like they're out there trying to help me be a better program. I'm not saying I trust everyone 100%, but like there's nobody has malintent, and like the collaborative environment has been good. No reluctance and like feeling weird about reaching out, asking for help.
So that's something in the culture, like or I'm assuming that's something in the culture. What do you think drives that? What drives
Etiquette.
that
I think there's a couple of key people who are very like consistently calm and very polite.
Who are those key people? What are the titles?
One's a manager, and then the senior manager, and he's on the business side, and then the senior manager on the tech side. Just all like basic etiquette, like please and thank yous. Like professional etiquette that's sincere, and it helps keep things calm, I think. Because things only get bad when you say things that you shouldn't. And if you're calm and you're like, you'll never do that. I mean, you can still say things you regret, but you get what I'm saying. Business conversation. What's the name of the thing? The scuttle. Water cooler.
No, it's called Real Leaders Go.
What's it called?
Real Leaders Go.
Literal. Okay. And you know what? Also, I believe that, like, no offense, like you can rule from the bottom. You can manage from the bottom, and it's just about saying, like, asking questions. So, like, during our daily stand-up, like, you can, even though I'm not technically a manager, I strategically ask questions to like direct conversations, to bring certain ideas to the table, and like to do so in a fashion that, or like you're leading in some extent. Like the other day, like I publicly like said like, hey, I'm struggling to figure out to discover the root cause of this bug. I'll need some guidance from somebody. And then the person who ended up giving me guidance was a woman younger than me, younger than me, but also like not as senior as I am. Her name's and then she ended up picking up some bugs on my plate and like getting them done. While the bug that I'm working on is not really a bug, it's really this big project. So like she's turning over bugs, getting them done, and just like taking bugs off my plate. So it looks a little, my perception is that there could be the perception that like here's this junior person who's like killing it, and then here's this new guy, whatever. So like that to me seemed like the natural analysis that anyone would see. Because like I'm not going up at the stand up and saying, hey, I'm really dealing with like a really big problem. Like, it's bigger. Anyways, she was crushing these bugs, and then like I got on our online one of our dashboards, and I gave her a shout out, like a public shout out. I was like, you know what? She's killing it. She's picking up stuff, and like her pace is quicker than it was before. And like she's helping, she's volunteering to pick up work and helping people. Like much appreciated. And I just feel like because I did that, like I love that I did that. I'm not gonna lie, because if I was too much worried about my ego, like I wouldn't have said that. But like I know that that's something that she wants to hear. I know she needs some confidence in her, because like our manager like 4 months ago said like, hey, you know, there's some concerns over quality of code. Not gonna say some names, but like we need to remember these procedures. But I know like it kind of like it hit her a little bit. I know, and then so like these things, they're not gonna show up in reports, and like they're not gonna like, but I know it's keeping her engaged and exciting to keep her engaged, and it's just like when there's no ego, like so many things that are otherwise threats just become like really interesting opportunities to like let other people shine, you know?
And like, so you started that whole thing saying that, you know, you can have leaders, you know, you're at the bottom, you said.
Yeah.
So based on that, like what would you say is a leader? Like, how are you defining a leader? Like what?
Someone who's just, because you can be, someone who's defining or shaping the environment. So, I mean, there's good leaders, there's bad leaders, but like, there's leaders that are leading and they're not like supposed to be leaders, but like, it's the people who are majority responsible for shaping the environment. Like, those are the leaders.
I like that definition.
Sometimes it's not the leaders. Yep. What do you? I mean, that would have been good if we would have captured that on the phone. But that's all right. We're live?
We are live. Oh, okay. So first I'm going to give you a little premise on what the whole thing is. So I started doing the leadership, not a series, or I'm starting a leadership series. And each few weeks I'm going to pick a different topic. At the beginning of the first session or period, I'll do a video where I just kind of talk about my raw thoughts on the topic without doing any research or interviews or conversations or discussions with anyone or doing any research on books or anything. Just kind of my raw thoughts based on my own experiences and resources that I've leveraged already in the past. And then over the next couple weeks, I'll have conversations with people. I'll find different resources, whether it's books, websites, TED Talks that speak on the topic. And, you know, I'll stay with a single topic and for a few weeks grab some resources, grab some new perspective and understanding. Then at the end of it, I'll put it all together in either a video or a one-pager, like everything, like all those aha moments that I had just through the experience of doing research and having conversations. And then I'll publish that and share it with folks who follow the channel or blog or whatever we're calling this, who follow the experience or the journey. And my first topic is leadership style. So I first, kind of talked about what leadership is, and then, I kind of dove into leadership style. And it's been very broad, so it's not anything in particular on leadership style, but just kind of leadership style, and I kind of talk about what my leadership style is and all that good stuff. So first, I just, we kind of talked about it a little bit before at the restaurant there.
Well, the premise of having these conversations and then collecting those moments, because there's always those moments in a conversation that are good, like when there's a mutual discovery of anything. There's moments in conversations that are just good, whether it's like you learn something, like a piece of wisdom. But the idea of like collecting those moments and sending them out to people, I think that's unique. Like I haven't heard of that. Because like conversations are special. Like when they're done correctly.
And like I find that I have a lot of my you find a large amount of like really good gems in conversations. Yeah. And a lot of times it's kind of weird, if it's like, ooh, let me write that down.
Right, you can't take notes in like your daily conversations.
And it'll be those authentic ones where you get like the biggest gems, and it's like, I'm gonna have to remember that one. Right. And you got to store it in a special place in your head, and if you don't, you kind of, it kind of stays there temporary. You might do something with it, and I think that's the thing. You got to do something with it immediately, or at least for me, like I have to either do something with it immediately, or unfortunately it gets lost in the abyss of all things that goes on.
True.
Well, first I'm glad that you are open to having this conversation with me.
Yeah, of course.
And I know you expressed that you're not currently in a leadership position, but I do want to have a conversation on like like leaders that you've had.
Right.
Like, what were some of the things that stuck out to you about some of the best leaders you had and some of the worst leaders you've had?
Yeah. So I've just now recently moved around to enough companies where I think I've seen different iterations of leadership styles. So it's just interesting that I think I've gotten to the point where I can actually reflect on different management styles that I've experienced. But I've seen a lot. There's been strong personalities to more reserved, laid back, and then different industries as well. Like, I think that's going to shape maybe at least to some degree some of the culture. Like when I was in finance, I think just the fact that you're in finance, you're dealing with big financial transactions, that adds a level of maybe intensity that wouldn't be in other fields. But I mean, every field has its own variables.
Kind of its own personality almost.
Yeah. Well, and then also, so I was in the military too. I was in the Navy for 2 years, and that type of leadership is very rigid. It's well defined. There's a rank structure, but then that's also a good example of how there's always an official rank structure, and then there's an unofficial rank structure. So in the military, there's for enlisted, there's E1 through E9. And by the time you're E4, you're a corporal, you're a non-commissioned officer, and you can actually you can throw around your weight a little bit. So you can tell people what to do.
Before you get too far, is the E1 the highest or E1 the lowest?
E1's the lowest. So,
Okay.
But so I was in the military, and I got to experience leadership. I mean, you're going to experience leadership at every different level when you're in the military, because everyone when you first start is above you. So you're going to experience a manager who's your same peer group, and a manager that's a couple years older, and then someone much more senior than you in age. But I've seen a lot, actually. So from military to tech to finance. And I've just now recently seen enough iterations where I can really reflect on it.
And like, having seen all those iterations, like when you think of like your favorite or most effective leader for you, like do you have a person in mind?
Yeah. Definitely.
Like describe or just talk to me about it. Like I just know.
Very stable, calm. So when there's a lot of pressure to meet deadlines, a lot of work, they stay pretty calm and they keep their hands off. They're encouraging. They're a great leader by your standard personality traits.
And those personality traits being some of the things that you listed there, kind of calm, mild-mannered, kind of straight. We got some of the other terms you use there, or descriptors.
I would also say this person's fair. That's important. They've also created an environment where there's just not a lot of egos, where people are willing to raise a hand and say, hey, I don't understand something, or would raise a hand and say, I finished my work, I can pick up some extra work. It's a pretty good work environment, now that I'm thinking about it, now that I'm reflecting on it.
How do you think that this leader kind of created this environment, or what did they do, or what is it about them that helped them create this environment where that's the case?
So, as a disclaimer, I should also say that I've been where I'm currently at, and who I'm talking about is where I'm currently at. So I've only been there for 6 months. So
and they get that number one spot already,
right? But we could still be in the honeymoon phase. But I feel like I've seen too much where that's not the case. It does feel like it's a good culture there.
Uh-huh.
But the way I think they set that culture is just by living it. So, you know, they're there every day for stand up, and they're present, and it's just a lot of courtesy, like basic etiquette of like please and thank yous, and it just keeps an environment that's really calm. Everyone knows that there's a lot of work and everyone's kind of stressed, but like just keeping things calm, and then being appreciative of everyone who's participating in that project.
You know, it's interesting because so one of the books I'm reading, I spoke about how when people talk about the best leaders that they've had,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they always talk about that person's personality and their characteristics of that person. And it's rarely like talking about, you know, the achievement or the things that they've accomplished or the school that they graduated from. And it's interesting because when companies like look for leaders, those are the first things they gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what school did this person go to? What they got on their track record? How successful? You know, what big numbers they could show that they did, and you know, all this stuff. But when it comes to like people who are actually led by these people, it's like they lean more into like, who is this person? So it's more of the who rather than the what. And it's that's like one of the big points in one of the books that I'm reading. And it's interesting, kind of, you know, that's the first thing you gravitate to. And you know, we've been talking about 10 minutes so far. You haven't said anything about what this person has accomplished, or you know, nothing about like anything that's not related to who this person is and how they are as a human being, rather than, you know.
Right.
So that's just interesting. I wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it just what makes me want to go into work. You know, what keeps me motivated, or what keeps me functional on a team.
Something you did bring up as well. You talked about official and unofficial leadership
yeah.
structure. Talk more about the unofficial leadership.
So there was a pretty clear delineation in the military, and it's pretty obvious. But so there's the official rank structure, E1, E2, E3, E4, up to E9. And then, so when I was in the military, I did 2 years active duty and 2 years reserve. The 2 years I was in active duty, so this is 2006 to 2008. So obviously those are Iraqi war, Afghanistan war. Like those are real engagements that our country is deep into at this point. So there is experience building up in the ranks, right, of people who have gone and who have experience in those unique conditions. Because you prep for those conditions beforehand. There's actually an area in our country called where people can train, and the environment is pretty similar to what we were seeing in Iraq and Afghanistan. So, but the point is once you're deployed, there's an official rank of like, all right, that's somebody's E6. I'm going to do what they're telling me because I'm in E3. But occasionally, if there was somebody who's E3, E4, but they've deployed, and then so they have unique experience. So they in some regards get more respect and they're more trusted amongst the platoon or amongst the people. So in that way, you could have someone. I remember when our officer joined our platoon, and so he had just finished 4 years of college, getting a history degree. Smart guy, went to University of Virginia, and he's our officer. So he's instantly first in command for our platoon. Mm-hmm. And then the day that we met him, it was via some type of military ceremony. Like, you know, this is your new lieutenant, you know, all that shit. And then, and I was impressed by it because that was my first time I've seen the butter bar or the lieutenant joining our platoon. And then so I
You said butter bar?
butter bar. So that's the term for fresh officers that just have one gold bar.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, hey, this new officer is kind of impressive. Look at him. And then this guy turns to me and he says, you know, he just did 4 years of college and I've done 2 deployments. Who are you going to trust? And then so it was pretty obvious to me that at that point that even though there was the official rank, then there would be circumstances where people of lesser rank were able to dictate how things were going or how things actually happened on the ground. Because actually at the E4 level, the non-commissioned officer level, they have a lot of decision-making power. So these kids at 18, 19, 20, 21, they get significant amount of opportunity for leadership.
Like through the official structure?
Yeah, through the official structure and then through the unofficial structure.
And
but
true,
so like,
they get deployed.
Yeah. And there's other things that could add to that unofficial structure. So there was one guy that hadn't really been deployed before, but he was stationed at an embassy somewhere, so he had some years of experience.
Yeah, some cred.
So he had some cred, but he wasn't deployed. and then once you're deployed, then there's another category of, and that's whether you have the combat action ribbon, so it's called a CAR.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've been deployed and you have a CAR, like you could be listened to over someone else that might have a higher ranking, or not. Okay. But it all plays. All those variables play out.
This is the first time where, like, you know, I've heard people talk about, yeah, he's a highly decorated soldier, you know, but it's the first time like it's like actually starting to like mean something to me. It's like, oh, so each one of those little things on that thing actually has a meaning.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that you like military guys know to look out for. That lets you know if someone's like. I mean, the ribbons tell you can tell you their whole career path if you're. But also, as soon as you join, you also get just a couple ribbons just for joining. If you join during like anywhere from like 2001 to 2019, probably still now if you still join, you get like the Global War on Terrorism medal, and so they're just medals though, but like you know the ones to look out for.
Okay.
Like you can see it. You see a Purple Heart, a ribbon. I mean, the purple just pops out, and you're like, oh yeah. I mean, like,
yeah, real deal right there.
That's the real deal. And like, I'll defer. I'll whatever they're gonna say, I'm at least gonna listen to.
So, backtracking a little bit, you talked about like the leader that stood out to you the most as like someone whose leadership style you worked well with. Mm-hmm. Like when you think about the worst leader you had, and I'll give you a second to think about that person. Mm-hmm. You seem like you have that person.
Yeah, I got something. Yeah, for sure.
Like, what is it that makes that person like the worst leader for you? Because I don't want to say they're the worst leader, but the worst leader for you.
It was just a lack of investment in. I'm cold. My voice isn't cracking. Just in case. I'm not getting emotional.
Hey, it's fine. You know. It's poor leadership makes me emotional too.
Like when the clouds come, it drops till it.
Even
drops.
Even speaking about poor leadership, bring the clouds.
Yeah, right.
About the rain on us. So yeah.
For the.
It did drop about 12 degrees when the clouds.
Right.
So, or when you start talking about poor leadership,
right.
It dropped 12 degrees instantly.
I just never felt like they were interested in investing in me or other workers. There was no buy-in for like whatever that dynamic is supposed to be, like whatever leadership dynamic, whatever the bare minimum threads are that would bind like two people into that dynamic. Mm-hmm. Like there was just no interest in setting that up.
If you were to use 3 words to describe this person, hit me with it.
You know, I think we should take fringe cases out. Because we're not even talking about bad leadership. We're just like the adjectives that are coming are just bad human words, like malicious, psychopathic. So we're not going to deal with that example.
Well, we just got
Maybe
one more word, because it might be a pattern that we can get out of it. So we'll deal with the worst words, and then we'll deal with the kind that's just not suited for you. But let's get 3 words for the worst, and then we can go to like those like they might be a good leader for someone, just not for me. Like that middle of the. But I am kind of curious as to words that you have for that worst leader.
I'll just say cold.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's sufficient.
I think that's the 3rd word. Malicious.
Yeah, malicious is aggressive. That's not. I guess being completely honest.
All right. So we'll excise that from the record.
For a character study, like what would be good words? Kind of spiteful. So if if ego was hurt, there could be like repercussions. You know. So maybe fragile. Cold, and
are you just saying cold because it's getting chilly out here?
Yeah, but they were cold because I remember that I would every day, actually wherever I work, where I go in, I just have a habit of greeting people. I think it's important to let people know that you see them. That you're alive, I'm alive. So I'll hit them with a good morning. I'm not trying to have a conversation at all. But greetings to me, I think, are important. I think etiquette, professionalism is important. I kind of think it's the fiber that really holds everything together.
Okay.
I think if you're working in a place where there isn't that bare minimum threshold of courtesy, things can really spiral. Etiquette just keeps it all together. So to me, when people aren't executing that necessary ingredient, which deserves a term, I don't know what that term is. Like, it's not disrespectful because they're not being like actively, vengeful or anything, but.
Well, they're just kind of lacking the common courtesy. I don't know a good word for you either.
Yeah, but it's courtesy to buy into the mission. Like, I'm sure I think like there's a military term like esprit de corps or something.
I feel like in most situations I compartmentalize things decently, but I feel like when I'm in a space where I'm not happy at the workplace, it's possible that I overcompensate outside the workplace. Because if I'm pissed off at work, then it's like, all right, I'm gonna own my happiness while I'm out of work. So and it may lead to unhealthy ways of like trying to release that tension from work. So
okay.
I try to maybe at different times I would wait for the weekend and go out and get drunk or something.
Right.
Because it's like, oh man, I had this rough week at work. Work, and so I might have unhealthy outlets to try to take back my happiness or something. Mm-hmm. So I know that may have been trends like in different times in my life.
What about your mood? So if you had like a rough day at work, are you able, like, what's your mood after work?
It's like a sigh of relief.
Okay.
Or it depends. I got mainly 2 options. It's either a huge sigh of relief, and then I just kind of pass out, and it's like, man, I'm glad that's over with. I need a break. And it's like a break from what? I don't know. But yeah, it's like, whew, like that was just exhausting to have to even if I didn't do much or accomplish much that day, just the mental pressure
Right.
of working in the place that you're in the space and place that you're just not happy about, it's mentally exhausting. So it's like after it, whether you've accomplished a lot or not, like that doesn't matter. Like still, you know, I'm mentally exhausted, and it's like, whew, I need to lay down.
Yeah.
Then the other option, the other side of it is, you know, I get done with it, and then it's like, all right, let me try to put that behind me. Let me try to do something that I actually enjoy doing, so I can shift my mind away from that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's either one or the other. But I will say that second one, it's been very intentional, or I have to intentionally be thinking on that path, because the first one is the more natural. They say you know, leaders bring the weather, and like leaders bring the weather, like for people, period. Like when we think about like we really, you know, leaders really impact, like, you know, people's lives. Like, you know, that we can have a positive impact on their life or a negative. So it doesn't just impact their lives at work, but literally impact people's lives and like how they operate within this, in their world. Like, and it doesn't just stop at work. Like if we're being, you know, if leaders are giving team members or their employees a bad experience at the workplace, it doesn't just stop there. Like you're ruining people's lives. Or on the flip side of that, if you bring in like a lot of positive things in the workplace and a lot of positive things to your team members, like you're you know, it probably trickles in their life as well. Like it doesn't stop at the work line. At least, you know, I believe that, I think.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. 100%. It sounds like you're decent at compartmentalizing. I sometimes if there's a rough day, I will be more. It'll take longer just to let go.
But me saying that, you know, that's me also trying to talk myself into it. So I don't know if I'm where I would like to be yet.
Right.
And it sounds good, but you know, there's a lot of lingering as well. But
right.
I'm intentionally working on it.
I like what you said though about how leaders bring the weather, because if they want to set a mood or set a tone, it's so easy. It's just so like, just their mood sets a tone. Mm-hmm. If they're in a good mood, your leader's in a good mood, but of course you're going to be in a good mood. Why wouldn't you be?
Man, that was the lesson I learned in the classroom. Like, you know, I worked in education for a bit, and now I was teaching a little bit in that stint as well. And I learned that, now I don't know if it was out of a professional development or, you know, if it was just through experience, but the first 10 seconds in the classroom in front of a, you know, new class is the most vital.
Yeah.
Like how you come in through that door, like if you got to get yourself together real quick, but how you come in through that door on that first 10 seconds will dictate how that class responds. And like I remember, you know, going into different classrooms, I had to put on a different mask before I went in because, you know, one class I know they might be rowdy. You know, you kind of hear them from the outside. It's like, oh shoot, okay, what? You know, they need strict, but we also need to make sure that we're gonna get some learning done. Or, you know, another class, it might be quiet. They got it all together. It's like, all right, they might need to loosen up a little bit. So let's be happy. But the first 10 seconds dictates how that class is going to run. And when you talk about bringing the weather, like, because I will say, like with students, they pick up quick. Like they could see automatically. Anything else on the topic of leadership styles that you wanna touch on today?
Yeah, like, no, actually I don't have any. I do think it's possible to lead from below by just asking powerful questions at the right at the right time. A question posed correctly like forces whoever was asked that question to potentially construct an idea in their head about an idea that you're framing that, depending on how the question's asked, that also asks for action. So you can create an idea in someone's head and then also be asking for action just by a good question. So in questions, anyone can ask a question, whatever position you're in. So
give me an example of that.
Following up with something. So if there was an announcement that like, hey, leadership is gonna do X, Y, and Z, and then those things might have an impact on you, you could, after an ample period of time has passed and you're genuinely curious about that, say like, what's the timeline for this? You know, I was looking forward to that. It seemed like a good idea. I was really motivated to like take on that type of project or something. And maybe the project died, or maybe they didn't know what the read was from the room, but letting them know that, hey, this is a project that, hey, this is something that somebody's asking about. Like, it puts you on the map. It gets just good. Any question about anything, like, gets you. And then also thanking people for what they're doing during one-on-ones with my managers. I spell out specifically what I like what they're doing. So say, hey, I appreciate that you did this. Like, I feel comfortable asking questions in this environment. Like, there's good collaboration. I like working with this person. And then you're basically kind of shaping. If that leader wants to really listens, they're tailoring how they're going to interact with you moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost a collaborative process. It can be, which I think is an interesting concept, that like you could have a good leader, but you also have some responsibility to provide input to the leader of like how things are working, because they need to know how the decisions they're making, how they're impacting you. Otherwise, their data set is blank. But if I say like, I really like the fact that you put me up to work with this guy, I think our strengths align, and I tell him that, then like maybe there'll be a higher frequency of projects where me and this person is aligned. Or he could say like, hey, no, I know you feel comfortable, I'm going to pair you with this person because I want to see you work on something else. There's just a lot. When there's much more honest information, there can be just, if they're a good leader, it gives them so many more tools of how they could help you grow.
And it sounds like what I'm hearing is like when you have a good connection with your leader, or when your leader has a good connection with their team members, like there's a more authentic conversation that can be had that will kind of push things in a more positive direction. So, you can be more authentic, as an engineer, and then they can be, and you can equip them with the information that they need to like really move things in the right direction.
Right.
Like not, for the engineers as well as, for the company.
Sah. In Arabic, we would say sah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Sah. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it sounds good.
You say that?
Yeah, you got it. No, you got it. For sure. There's a lot of cool shots from this spot.
Yeah, this is a good people watching spot. It's a nicely active corner here.
It's my hands look frozen white.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not warm out here.
That's all I got.
That's all she wrote.
I
Appreciate you.
And remember, you can always lead from the bottom.
See where you're going with this conversation?
Yeah. He would quiz them about calculus. So they would have, also these people on the ship, so they would need to be able to do complex work to navigate the ship. that required a special education and unique training for taking ownership of a unique, expensive piece of national property, the ship. And then they also needed to be able to speak a foreign language so that they could like parlay with whether it would be the French speaking with it, and so like they needed so much specialized training that was so critical to the mission that if that person was lost, it would jeopardize the whole venture. Today, that doesn't exist. Like there aren't those key like people that encapsulate so much of the functionality of the mission that that was why you had an officer. That's why you had a naval officer. So you could have that person who could do all those things. And today it's like it's a machine that does it. So now we have this whole rank structure where it was like people would learn these specialized skills, and there was a correlation between that and like now it's just a guy who does 4 years of history at University of Virginia. You know what I mean? And like his 4 years of college is a disservice because like we've got two guys that we got the rest of the guys who've done 2 deployments, and they're bringing real experience, real applicable experience. And now we're going to listen. Now you're in charge, and you've just been to college for 4 years.
Yeah, that might be a similar argument with having that MBA lead an organization over someone who worked with the organization and was fighting for a spot in leadership.
Right.